What's up, guys? Welcome to the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar. It's been a few months since we hit you with a solo episode. Episode 54. It's just going to be me. This is going to be kind of like a news segment talking about the ongoings in powerlifting, exciting things coming up, um, things to keep in mind, sneak peeks of the Ghost Clash. What's been going on with the WRPF, what's been going on with powerlifting as a whole, right? Um, one thing I'm really excited to talk about, Article 14, the IPF. You guys are probably like, well, that has nothing to do with the WRPF, but this podcast is all things powerlifting. We're passionate about powerlifting as a whole, and something that should be known and well known about the WRPF is federations, we don't care. You can come over, you can compete in this federation, that federation, another federation. It's all just about the love of powerlifting and giving different types of platforms. For a long time, the WRPF was strictly a untested, non-drug tested federation. It was drug testing wasn't added until about 3 or 4 years ago to the federation. So before that, people only gravitated to and competed in the USAPL. All right. I'll give you guys a little bit of history. So what we're talking about, you just heard me say Article 14. A lot of you guys might not know what it is. A lot of you may know what it is. And I'm going to break it down for you guys. As someone who, as you guys know, if you listen to this, been in powerlifting for quite some time, has coached, competed in different federations for quite some time. Um, so if we take it back, right? Going to competitions, coaching back for myself in 2014, 2015, 2016, etc. The primary federations here in Florida were a USPA as a non-drug tested federation and then the USAPL. I had athletes competing in both of them. At that time, I didn't really know about Article 14, what that meant, etc. My athletes were able to compete in both. Things were more low key, no social media. And at the end of the day, these athletes who I had were not big, great, elite level athletes, right? So Article 14, essentially what that was, is it was part of the USAPL until about 2 years ago. And why was that part of the USAPL? The USAPL was a branch of the IPF. The IPF is the world level equivalent of the USAPL. USAPL being the in the US, and where the US team sends their team to Worlds and other countries send theirs to Worlds to compete against each other. Most of you guys have heard of, you've seen, especially in these recent years, IPF Worlds, the excitement behind IPF Worlds, the Sheffield, which is an IPF championship, right? So if we start talking 2016, 2017, these people, Article 14, I can't tell you exactly how long it's been around, but you start to see more people being affected by it. I know firsthand of scenarios of threats of Article 14 back in 2018. I'll tell you guys that story in a second. So, what Article 14 essentially is in a nutshell is it is a rule that states if you are a part of their organization being the IPF, or at that time, the USAPL, because the USAPL had to abide by IPF's guidelines. You are not allowed to compete in any other federation. You are not allowed to coach in any other federation, okay? Because the USAPL and the IPF require you to have a membership just to be able to coach at competitions as well. Even if you have no intention of competing, if you're a lifter on steroids, but you want to coach someone, you won't be drug tested, but you need to pay them a membership fee. A perk of the WRPF, coaches don't have to have their own membership fees, right? Or their own memberships for the federation, but they do require that. So if you're a coach and you've coached at a high level USAPL or IPF meet at that time, you can't coach in any other meet. You can't be in the back warm up room of any other meet. You cannot lift in the same room as anyone who has received a ban from the IPF. You can't work out in a gym or the same room as these people. And what was confusing and even difficult about it is a lot of it wasn't even clearly outlined. It wasn't until more recent years where then they like bullet pointed it and made it even more absurd and obscene. But you would just hear of threats. So again, in 2018, we hosted the hybrid showdown, and the deadlift only portion of the hybrid showdown, which was a pro show, we strategically made it unsanctioned. We thought that maybe this would be a way to get around it. At that time, we had invited Jess Bootner and a few other lifters, Danny Mello, who was lifting at our gym at the time, who were all going to also compete in the deadlift only portion of it. It's fun, non-sanctioned, deadlift only. The full power sport portion was sanctioned. Well, these lifters were reached out to by whoever the higher powers were and told them if you lift in this, you're banned, right? You're banned. Whatever, you can't do it. So they didn't do it. Always been a kind of crappy rule. No one liked it, but for a lot of people, there was that line where if you were a coach or an athlete in the USAPL, you're okay over there. That's your home. You don't really care if you can't come coach or compete at the WRPF or whatever it is. No big deal, because powerlifting was a little bit more sectioned and not as unified back then, I would say. There was really a dividing line with tested and untested powerlifting on either side, right? It wasn't really until this massive growth and surges that it just pushed everyone all together. Like we said, the WRPF adding a tested option, there being less of those hard lines of what side to be on. Then if you fast forward to about 2 years ago, around 2022, the USAPL had a ton of issues with the IPF. They like what I mentioned, they were required to abide by whatever they said, whatever their rules are. This international body, the USAPL has to follow it all. USAPL had a lot of issues with how the IPF wanted to run drug tests. USAPL drug tests a lot of people every competition. I'm a USAPL meet director. You have to drug test 10% of the lifters, the same as what we do with the WRPF. Well, the IPF was like, no, we only want to drug test, here and there. Some people, every competition, no, not even necessary. Um, USAPL was not cool with that. They were tired of being told what to do. USAPL left the IPF, right? This has been this huge shift over the last 2 years. USAPL was now their own thing, their own rules, and they were doing such great shit. Like alone the IPF, you have to pay $250,000 to get your equipment approved by them to be able to use it. USAPL used to have to follow that. Then now that they're gone, they're like, you guys can wear whatever you want. You guys can do whatever you want. We're going to give away prize money. We're going to do this, that, and the other. It was a great, great shift about 2 years ago. And with that, all the lifters who were previous USAPL were like, ride or die, we're going to stay USAPL, right? All that until until last year Sheffield, until last February, right? That was the big eye opener that got everyone's attention. Everyone's like, holy crap, this is cool. You know, Historically, all the pro meets have been, through the WRPF, things that we've been doing. And in the USAPL, it's just like nationals, compete at the Arnold, compete at nationals. It's kind of all the same. There was no really pro platform. SBD and the Sheffield and the IPF created this crazy, 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 very cool pro product, right? Different than what we had been doing. But with that, around that time and before that time, when the USAPL left the IPF created a new affiliate called Powerlifting America, right? And that's when they're like, we're gonna really you guys, okay, you guys are gonna stay over there. Well, guess what? We're gonna hardline and we're gonna make it very clear and very strict what Article 14 is, right? And like, you coaches, You guys over there, if you're over there at a USAPL meet and you want to come over here because one of your guys wants to stay and compete at World still, ban, instant ban, fuck you. You know what I mean? Kind of deal like that. So where that was a big eye-opening experience and where a lot of people saw it firsthand was the Sheffield last year, the Sheffield 2023. As you guys know, you've heard me talk about it. I got to experience it. I was there. I was coaching. I was one of the 24 coaches there at the Sheffield, the first Sheffield, right? Coaching one of my old athletes. I was able to. So here's how their kind of loophole bullshit goes, right? I had never been affiliated with the IPF. I had never been, when USAPL was IPF, I was never affiliated. So it was my first time buying an IPF membership, right? So they took my money. I was able to buy that membership, right? I was able to coach at that meet because a lot of people were like, how the fuck is he back there? He runs these pro level meets. He does this, that, and the other. Because I had never done it. I'd never been involved. I got my membership. I went and coached there. And then after that, now, as soon as I do something else, if I try to go back, they'll ban me. They'll tell me no, right? Because that's when Article 14 then kicks in. Because now you have your membership. You're a part of something else. You try to go back, go fuck yourself. Where people really saw that is with Joey Flex, right? At Sheffield, at the first Sheffield, Joey Flex was not allowed. He was serving a ban. He wasn't allowed to be in the back warm-up room. He was in the crowd, right? He was in the stands, literally with a headset, telling his handlers on what to call for a Seuss and what to call for all these different people, because had jumped back and forth. Boom, you're banned. You can't be back here. Forget about the athletes, right? Literally, the coaches couldn't even be back there, right? And they just started handing out all these bans, for crazy shit. So after that first Sheffield, that was a big eye opener for a lot of US drug-free lifters who were like, well, fuck, man, they held a standard. Like, we want to go do Sheffield. Everyone wanted to go do Sheffield. Besides there being astronomical amounts of money on the line, it was such a cool, badass meet. Super different the way the scoring is, super competitive, just the best of the best, just the number one in each weight class, or the people closest to the world record totals, right? So over this last year, we've seen a huge shift of people like, man, what am I going to do? Crap. Okay, well, I haven't bought a Powerlifting America membership yet, so these people aren't needing to serve a ban. So they're like, I can switch over, but then there's no turning back, right? For these lifters, they know if they go Powerlifting America, they can never compete in USAPL again. They can never come to the WRPF. They can never do any of that because these people are like, we're watching you, right? It's our way or the fucking highway, ultimately, right? So we've seen some people going over, making the switch, competing Powerlifting American Nationals, qualifying for Worlds. Who we've seen Ashton Ruska, we've seen Bob Matthews, we've seen all these lifters come out and do amazing performances that they were previously doing in the USAPL, now switching over. We have someone like Rondell Hunt, right? Who he got issued a ban because he decided to compete in a USAPL meet, corrupted strength meet or whatever it was. They issue him a ban. So he's serving his ban. He couldn't go and compete at nationals this year. He couldn't try to make it to Worlds because they gave him a ban. That's kind of the rundown. Like, that's kind of the bullshit, right? Now, where do I fall into that? Okay. And then we'll get to where this shift and where this might just change might be. Over these last 5-6 months have been a lot of people either making the difficult decisions, Powerlifting American Nationals was a couple months ago, making the switch over, knowing that they're stuck now making the switch over. People like Sean Noriega not wanting to make the switch over right away because he still has athletes to coach this year. He has a bunch of people going around nationals. He doesn't want to leave them high and dry because these people who are lifters and coaches or coaches and coaches, they go coach Powerlifting American Nationals. Guess what? You can't go to Raw Nationals later this year, or else you're going to get a ban and you're not going to be at the Sheffield next year or whatever that may be. So I coached Joanne Garrison. You guys may or may not know who he is. If you don't know who he is, at the American Pro last year, he broke the all-time world record, 181 total, all-time world record squat. He's broken multiple all-time world records, set the third highest dots of all time, barely missing the second highest dots of all time. Um, as a drug-free lifter, even though he's competed in these pro-level untested meets, it's because that's where the most competition was for him. We talked at the end of last year and into January about making this switch to the IPF versus making the switch to USAPL. And the only reason why he didn't make the switch to IPF this year and go to Powerlifting American Nationals this year was because of Article 14. Because he's like, Coach, I need you there. I want you to be there. And I'm like, I fucking know. It's fucking bullshit. I don't want to be in the stands with a walkie-talkie. If that's what I got to do, that's what I'll do. But I told him, I was like, let's do USAPL this year. We'll do IPF next year because I have a feeling something is going to change, that there's going to be some kind of flip. There's going to be some kind of switch somehow. Something's going to get sparked. There's too much controversy behind this. There's too much BS. There's too much anger, and something's going to give. So he recently competed in a USAPL meet at my gym, broke an absolutely historic record. Jesse Norris's all-time drug-tested 198 record of 2015. No one's touched that. Tons of people in the USAPL and the IPF have been talking about doing it. None of them have done it. No 198 or 205 has total over 2K besides Jesse Norris. And boom, Jawan went and did it. He laid a little stamp, let people know what was to come, made the announcement next year, we're going IPF. One way or another, we are going IPF. I'll be there with him if I'm in the stands or if I'm in the back. I obviously have now an even larger vested interest of why this Article 14 is BS, because I got my one and done. I was there at Sheffield. Best believe I want to be there again at Sheffield 4 when Jawan qualifies and dominates. So that brings us to present day. There is now a lawsuit being filed against the IPF. Sean Koch, a lifter, recently made a video. If you guys haven't seen it, look him up on Instagram at Sean KOCH_official. And he is fighting Article 14 to support and battle athletes' rights. In the video, you can hear him break down why he believes the ban is completely illegal, that it violates US and European laws, and he gives examples of different cases of how and where it violates these laws. He's already brought on a lawyer to fight it and go against it, and he has a GoFundMe. Make sure you donate. If you're listening to this and you're invested in the story, whether because it's a part of you, your potential athlete career, coaching career, or just involvement as a whole, but just because it's really big, it's huge for the sport and it's huge for some people more than others. It plays a huge impact, and it's directly taking away from the unity. Like I just said, 4 or 5 years ago, there was that hard line and no one cared. You were on one side or the other of that line. As it's grown, it's pooled up. There's so many athletes, so many people who are in it for the love of the sport. We've kind of pooled and blurred together, and it should be that way. There should be no dictation and person telling you you can't go do that. It's only our way or the highway. We live in a free country, America. Granted, the IPF isn't an American federation, but guess what? Powerlifting America, that branch of it is. So who is the Powerlifting America governing bodies to say you can or you cannot do that? It's very interesting, and it's an interesting turn of events that I kind of saw and I predicted and had a feeling when I talked to Joanne a couple months ago. I was like, there's going to be enough pushback on it. There's going to be enough, protesting, whatever you will, to hopefully get rid of it. But then when there's a lawsuit, if a lawyer and this person actually believe it's violating laws, that changes things a lot. That puts a lot of pressure on the IPF to fold, accept, and adapt to a new era. That is my hope that that's going to happen because all these lifters, like we said, stayed in the USAPL, went back over to IPF. But why can't people go back and forth? Why can't people do both? Why can't people have fun? Why can't those lifters come and compete at the Ghost Clash also, just to have some fun in their off season or whatever it may be? There's more than enough meats, choices, options to go around that you shouldn't be limited by what, overhang or umbrella and federation is over the top. Support the good meat directors, support the good events, support and have fun with it, right? So that's the hope that that's what happens, because the lifters who have already made the switch over, who didn't have bands, whatever it is, those lifters that I mentioned who did Powerlifting American Nationals and absolutely destroyed it, are going to IPF Worlds. We're 3 weeks out from IPF Worlds, and IPF Worlds is ultimately what determines the roster for the Sheffield. They've done such a cool job, like I said, SBD setting up for the Sheffield, and we're all taking notes. Myself and all the other pro meet directors, it's amazing what they've been able to accomplish, and it's exciting to watch and see. So are we going to see the U.S. completely sweep IPF World? That's the question. That's what so many people are talking about, where we have an athlete in almost every male weight class that the males can potentially clean sweep from the bottom up to super heavyweights, and you can only hope that soon enough their coaches, their team and everyone will be able to be by their side without saying, okay, well, I have to just choose this organization and all my other lifters who want to go compete in Raw Nationals because they know they're not going to go to IPF Worlds and Raw Nationals is fun for them. Well, I can't be there for them. My athletes who want to go compete at the Ghost Clash of the American Pro, I can't be there for them. So that's the hope. Time will tell. And that IPF Worlds coming up in a couple of weeks will set up that Sheffield lineup. And for this summer, that is the thing I am most excited about, right? Is watching that IPF World, seeing how next year's Sheffield lineup is going to look. But what's around the Sheffield also next year? Same time at the beginning of 2025. Ghost Clash, right? And you like that organic segue into it, right? Ghost Clash 4 announcement is coming up. It's coming up these first couple days in June. We'll give you guys a little teaser. We'll announce a date. It's going to follow a very similar format to last year. So if you go scroll back on the Instagram, you see some of those different, the little bit of information, how things are released, when things are opened up. It's going to be very, very similar to last year with all of that. So stay tuned for that. Make sure when you guys see when the date is announced, you mark your calendar, you get ready for it, because like every year, it goes quick, right? So very excited to bring that to you guys soon. And just keep watching Powerlifting Unify, right? Because that's what I want, and that's what I know a lot of us want as well. We have Surge to New Levels coming up as the next pro meet on our pro calendar. As you guys know, that one is already sold out. American Pro in November still has some spots available. So if you qualify, go check the qualification of that, get registered and get signed up for it. And we're excited for this summer. We're kicking off summer. We're kicking off summer strong. We'll be continuing our Meet Director series in the upcoming episodes. Thank you guys for tuning on. Thank you guys for listening. And I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the WRPF podcast.